Song for the Imps. How about a song for the Imps? There we go, then. Come on, let's get some of the lads together. Let's have a good old sing song, yeah. Okay, yeah, all right. Come on, fellas. Get around the piano. Let's have a good go. Come on, then. Are you ready? Come on, you lot. Go on, then. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Lincoln City are the team, the Radiance is their name. Stinsel Bank is their home ground and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you lads, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our...
Morning all, how are we doing? I say all, one person's on board, welcome to you. But obviously this will be available to watch back. It is not patrons only. Morning Connor, it's Connor who's on board. There's 9 now. Hello everybody. So this one will be staying on the YouTube. This is available for everybody. Some of the dog walks I do go on the Patreon only site. Thank you for those of you that follow that. Ed Harrison, fantasy football extraordinaire, doing very, very well in our league, is on board as well. Morning pal, hope you're well. So we have a little bit of transfer news to talk about. It was hinted to me on Monday or Tuesday that we were expecting to make an announcement for the end of the week, and then on Tuesday night stood outside the 200 club. Sam Clucas goes in. People have seen him sitting talking to Jez George, so it is not a surprise that this morning Sam Clucas has returned to the club after we'll say 16-year absence. I think it's 15 years, given that it was September 2009 through to January 2025, so 16 actual years, but 15 years and something like 4 months, I believe. So he's back, and when we sing "He's one of our own" at any players, you can sing that at Sam. Sam serving coffee in Debenhams probably served me at some point back in the day. Not that I ever went in Debenhams in 2009, but you never know. He played for Netlem. He had a 1-year contract in the 09-10 season under Peter Jackson. He made his debut in the EFL Trophy, I think it was, whatever it was called back then, against Darlington. And then Jacko was promptly fired. And if I remember correctly, I think in the next game we beat Darlington 3-0. I might be wrong about that. I think we then played them in the league and beat them. Sam disappeared. He went off to the Glen Hoddle Academy, rebuilt his career from there. Hereford, Mansfield, Chesterfield, Hull City, Stoke City, Swansea City. I think he played for all of those clubs. That's completely off the top of my head. £23 million worth of transfer fees. I always remember as he was performing in the Championship, in the Premier League, there was a slight hint, I think, while he was at Swansea, that he might have been on the edge of an England call-up. Back in the day, I seem to remember sitting in Chris Ilsley's box at one point. So we're talking probably 2016, 17 now, and that being mentioned as well. 34 years old, vastly experienced player. But I think in this day and age, when you say 34 years old, it's very, very different to if you were saying 34 years old in like the 80s. In the 80s, 34 was Steve Foley, Trevor Hebbard, washed up, coming towards the end of the career, looking for a final payday. I think 34 in the Premier League era, you're still athletic. You've looked after yourself very, very well. You have to have at the top level. Sam played 30 odd times in the Championship last season for Rotherham as a 33-year-old, which kind of tells you an awful lot about his condition. He's been at Oldham for a couple of months as well. Spoke to a couple of Oldham fans off the record this morning. They're gutted. They think he was one of their best players. There could be an element of the Theo Robinson around this. Theo came to us in the National League on a short-term contract, impressed, and then moved to Southend to continue his career. He was a little bit younger, and there's an awful lot of other stuff around Sam coming in, and I want to address that first and foremost, because if we had signed, and Chris said this on the podcast with respect to him, if we'd signed a 34-year-old former Premier League midfielder who had no connection to the club whatsoever, who had dropped into the National League, we would probably be going, well, that's pretty underwhelming, isn't it? But I think with Sam, it's a little bit different because of the Lincoln connection. He's still a good footballer. There's no doubt about that. I'm not bringing that into any question at all. It'd be wholly wrong to. You don't play 30 odd times in the Championship as a 33-year-old if you're not in a decent condition. And we're only, Championship season ended in May, so we're only, 8 months down the line. So he's still going to be in really good condition. Sam spoke to Matchday Live 4 years ago now, myself and Sam Ashu, and he was speaking about how one day he wanted to finish his career at Lincoln. He wanted to come back. He felt it was unfinished business. Really nice guy. He watched us at Wembley. He watched us when we beat Gillingham 3-0 on telly that season. He's still a Lincoln boy. So as soon as a news report came out a couple of weeks ago that I think it was Charlton, Mansfield and us were looking at Sam, for me, there was only ever going to be one winner to that. If he was going to move into League One, it was going to be us. I don't think for a player who's been in the Premier League as he has, this decision was ever going to be about money. I don't think you were going to get him going, well, Lincoln will pay me £2,000 a week, but Mansfield will pay me 2,500, so I'll go for the extra 500. I think when you get to 34, you've achieved what Sam has in his career, and he has achieved plenty. To play in the Premier League, having been serving coffee at Debenhams when you were 18 or whatever, is outrageous. So he's achieved things, and it feels to me now like he's kind of coming home and he's going to have an impact on the squad. Will he have an impact on the first 11? That's a really interesting question. I don't think so straight away, but he is match fit. He has been playing for Oldham. He has been pressing for Oldham, so there's no reason why he won't be in and around the first team squad. I think that he is a profile of player that we only have one other of, and that's Ethan Arahan. Now, when Arahan's injured or suspended, I know Conor McGrandles plays the holding midfield role, but Conor, for me, isn't as much a holding midfield as a box-to-box man, very much like an Ethan Hamilton. Whereas an Ethan Arahan is the holding midfielder. I know if Pete's watching, he did just try and bring me in a hung up on him, so sorry, Pete. But if he's watching and I say the 6, he'll hate that. Don't call players by their positions. But I think Sam can play that, and he can dictate the play a little bit. He's certainly creative. He'll certainly chip in with assists if he gets the opportunity. Some assists soon, because that was so in terms of the first team, I can see him playing, dare I say, a backup role. Dare I say, a kind of we're out of the cup competitions now. If Ethan does pick up any more silly suspensions or anything like that, it gives us an option. If we want to play against a team like Birmingham, where we want actual double sixes, sorry again, like we used to play, like if you were to put Boswick and Woodland side by side, I don't know if we ever actually did that, but if you want to play those two kind of holding midfielders, go really defensive, that allows us to do that, I think, a little better than with Conor, and that's no disrespect to Conor McGrandles. I think he's a good player, but I think that Sam probably brings something a bit different, and he brings that experience as well, doesn't he? You know, Premier League, Championship is where he spent most of his career. He's dealt with big money moves. He's dealt with all manner of pressure, and I think we've seen with Tendai Doriqua how that resonates and emanates through the squad. I mean, Tendai made no secret of the fact that he's kind of taken Jovan under his wing a little bit, and whatever your position on Jovan Makama, I think he's had a decent season so far for a 20-year-old. He's taken a lot of barracking, but he's certainly developed well. That's why you need some experienced players around the squad, and Michael Scavalla said we need an experienced striker as well. I don't think we'll sign a 34-year-old striker out of the National League, but I think that experience through the spine will probably help us make better decisions. You know, players like Jack Moylan will be aware of Sam Clucas from being kids. Now, if Jack Moylan was a kid and watched Premier League football at any point at all, he'll be aware of Sam Clucas. So a player like Sam coming in, he's going to be a big influence for them. And if he can help with decision making, and if he can help with some of the nuances of the game that perhaps we're not quite getting right, then I think that he'll be a massive signing. But he's still a 34-year-old out of the National League, and I think that's where then you come onto this one of our own. Because it almost, I'm not going to say it offers him a shield, because that's wrong. He doesn't need to come in and deflect anything straight away. But it's almost a buffer. It's almost like it's an additional factor. Well, no matter what anybody tells me, you can't take emotion out of football. Simply can't. It's really easy to say, if you take the emotion out of it, did we do well here? If you take the emotion out of it, is that a good signing? If you take the emotion out of anything, you suck the joy, the life, and the love out of it. So for a player who made his Lincoln debut 5,833 days ago, or that figure, it's just over 5,800, might be about 64, to have then gone on away from Lincoln, had this phenomenal career, which he has, to then come back at the end of his career, there's a feel-good factor. There is. It's nice. Sam Clucas has come home. All the times you hear it, when Lee Frecklinton came back, people will tell you that Lee's second spell at the club, his impact was negligible. He scored the penalty that put us in to Wembley for the first time. He carried us for the first 6 months, or the first maybe 3 months of our title-winning season. I mean, he was outstanding. Bury, for instance. And I remember the game really well. We won 2-1. I think Freck was outstanding. He won a penalty in that game. if I remember. It was the day I started the Real EFL. I actually wrote the first Real EF article before I left for that game. It was about Kevin Nolan at Notts County being under pressure. So I'll never forget that game. And Freck was brilliant. He carried us through. Then he got injured at Port Vale, Poleaxe, and his impact diminished. You can't take away what he did from when he signed in the January of 2017-18 through to when he got injured, probably halfway through the following season. Because he was a talisman. He's one of our own. We know him. People know his family. People know Lee Frecklinson's dad. They know Lee Frecklinson's dad. Talk to them in the street. And that just, it's almost, I imagine like when you're building a wall, when you're building a house and you're putting a wall up, you put something called brick ties in, which help tie the bricks together. You put you put it in the mortar between the bricks. I don't know exactly how it works. I'm not a brickie. And for me, that kind of emotional connection helps. So they're the brick ties. You're building the team, but they help pull the team and the fans together a little bit. And I think we'll get that a little bit with Sam. He is one of our own. He does have a big history. He goes back to 2009. What else at the club goes back to 2009 other than me and most of you and the ground? Not a lot. Not a lot of the players, not a lot of the staff anymore. You've got your Alan Longs, people like that, stalwarts for the club every time something comes around, an anniversary, Alan Long 1,000 games, or Bob's 25 years, something like that. It's like these are the people that matter at football. The players and the staff don't go back to 2009. So to now get somebody that does go back that far, to get somebody that used to pay to come and watch Lincoln City, now playing in Lincoln City's midfield, 34, 24, 54. I think that's a story, and I think that's something that will give certain players and certain people around the club a bit of a lift. I do, and rightly so. So I think you can't take the emotion out of it. If you try to, you can find problems with the transfer. He's 34 years old. Are there going to be some more? Are there going to be injury problems? We looked at the likes of Neil Eardley and Michael Bostwick. Once you get to a certain point, well, people look after their body more. The physical demands of football are higher as well. So is Sam coming in to play 46 games? Well, no, because he signed till the end of the season. There aren't 46 games left. But it was interesting in Jez's comments. Two things. One, I think Jez said he didn't know what Sam's impact would look like. So at the moment, we don't know how much he's going to impact the first team. Is he going to be more of a figure on the training ground? It's uncertain, and there's been no huge promises about how that's going to work. I think that's fair enough. And there was also the comment about him finishing his career here. I found that really interesting as well. Because you would imagine if he is fit, and he's proven that really at Oldham, you wonder if there might be another season in him anyway. And therefore, will we get a Lee Frecklinson situation where after 6 months, we extend for another year? And okay, people will start joking about Dad's Army, Tendai Derek with Sam Clucas, but to have a couple of players like that, bear in mind Tendai's played top flight. Bear in mind, Tendai's played a lot of games in the Championship as well. I think it's a wise decision in terms of the overall squad. Is it a wise decision in terms of the actual playing squad? Is Sam Clucas likely to be a star player for us over the next 6 months? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to rule it out, but he won't be a star player in the same way that, let's say, a 28-year-old striker coming in who, like a John Marquis figure a couple of years ago, a kind of not a marquee signing because that puts a lot of pressure on the club, but an experienced striker. So I think that's my thoughts on Sam Clucas. There's 23 of you watching now. Thank you so much. What day is it? It's Thursday or Friday today? I think it's Friday today, isn't it? Oh, Jesus. So John Bates is on board. I hope you're well, John. We should do a game again soon. I enjoyed watching Morecambe with you, mate. Could he end up as a coach? You see, it could be that. He could be coming in on a coaching path. I just think it's that experience. And sometimes you do need that. And people look at certain coaches we've had, like Michael Appleton, Mark Kennedy, and they'll go, they've had that top flight experience. Michael Skubala hasn't. Chris Cohen has. And you wonder now if maybe just, with Chris Cohen, who's been there and done it, you've got Sam Clucas, who's been there and done it, Tendai, who's been there and done it. We're beginning to look like we've got a little bit of experience inside. You don't want a full squad of those, but that's really annoying me. You don't want a full squad of those type of players, but I think that you do have to have them. And it's something perhaps we've lacked a little bit. Not just this season, but going all the way back, maybe to the Danny Cowley era. We've maybe just lacked a little bit of that. When Michael Appleton came in, the first thing he did, and I like Michael Appleton, don't have to say that, everyone knows it, but, Michael O'Connor was sidelined. Lee Frecklinson was sidelined. All of those, the players, the key players that were older were sidelined. And I remember Michael saying, walking in, it was like Dad's Army. But actually, those players had put us in the top 3 or 4 of League One at the time. And maybe on reflection, you can see that there was a slight error there in how they dealt with those players. But at the same time, it was when we were bringing in Teo Eden and Anthony Scully and going for that younger approach. And let's be honest, the following season, we got to the playoff final. So swings and roundabouts. And that was with the only really experienced player, if I remember correctly then, was probably Tom Hopper. You do have to have it. Flossie Tops says, I'm sure that's not his real name. If it is, his parents were cruel. Flossie. Unless you're a girl. Sorry, Flossie. Might be a girl. Yeah, we will still have the bashes who call this a backward step. I think is stability and a wise move. As part of a wider and structured recruitment plan over the winter, it will be a good move. If he's the only player that comes in, then he'll get battered. And unfortunately, the form at the moment means that a majority of opinion is negative rather than positive. That's fact. And I can understand it. I ranted the other day on the Patreon only dog walk. I'm not ranting now. But it's understandable. We're on a bad run. And whilst I try and dissect it and take each game as it comes and kind of find the positives and the negatives in each game, a run forms a longer spell. You know, if you're an individual and you have one bit of bad luck one day, it's a bit of bad luck. If you're an individual and you have 5 or 6 weeks bad luck, it begins to get on you and your overall life is getting you down. Whereas actually it's still 5 or 6 individual pieces of bad luck. But sometimes you've got to make your own luck. Or in Lincoln City's instance, sometimes you've got to score your own goals. You know, we haven't scored a goal in open play since December the 21st. It's got to change. It's got to change tomorrow. It's got to change quick. Sam Clucas probably won't be the one to influence that. So it's got to change from the players that we've got. And what's frustrating is these are good players. Ben House is a good player. Bailey Cadamartri is a good player. Tom Bayliss is a good player. Jack Moylan's a good player. These are good footballers. They are. And they've all scored goals. You know, at one point we were sharing goals out. Freddie Draper and Jovan Makama. I mean, I don't know if Kev's watching. If you are watching, Kev, I mean, that comment the other day, mate, on Twitter, come on, it had to be tongue-in-cheek. For those who don't know, Kev asked if Jovan and Freddie were the worst strike partnership Lincoln City had since Delroy Facey and Drew Broughton. You know that face palm emoji? For a start, Facey and Broughton only ever started 2 games together. A 1-0 defeat against Burton and then a 1-0 defeat the week after as well. And I think they were either side of Chris Sutton's resignation. Might be wrong. So they weren't really a strike partnership. And of course, Draper and Makama are better than those. And they're better than many of the strike partnerships that we had in the National League. For instance, Carl Perry and Sam Smith, in my opinion. I don't know, it'll spark debate. But they're 2 young players as well. But anyway, I'm not getting into that because I'm not going to start ranting. People are entitled to their opinion. They really are. Harry Jackson's got a good point here. We had the hometown boy with Vernon. He didn't work out as well as hoped. Hopefully Clucas does. No, he didn't. One thing I think about Charles was he got injured. Sorry, just checking that one, the tractor. He got injured in a pre-season friendly. Might have been against Blackburn Rovers, literally on the eve of the season, and that set him back a little bit. And secondly, he also had strong Grimsby connections. And I think, well, Sam's absolutely Lincoln, you know, through and through. I actually quite liked Charles. I met Charles. I thought he was a really nice guy. He got it. I felt really sorry for him that it didn't work out. And I hope that it does work out much better at Grimsby for him because he's a nice guy and he deserves it. Whether he plays for Grimsby or not. I respect footballers who understand it and get it. There are quite a few footballers who have come through Lincoln City who I feel the same way about. Tom Pett is another one. Tom Pett was a great guy. I hope wherever Tom Pett goes, he's good. Footballers that have a degree of humility about them, I really respect. Tom had that. Charles Burnham had that. There was quite a few who did. Ollie Palmer did not have that. Dale Warner, hope you're well, pal. I agree, mate. What we've missed since Bridcut is our older generals in the squad. Players whose impact in the dressing room is as important as their impact on the pitch. Indeed. Now, one thing I'll say about Bridcut, he trained at 100 miles an hour all the time, which whilst that gave a really good, a good role model for the young players to follow, there's no wonder he got injured a lot. Fucking hell. And I remember watching training one week. He was flying into tackles left, right and centre. I'm thinking, just ease up a little bit. But then I suppose you have to train. You have to train how you mean, don't you? So what's going to happen next? Well, I don't expect... I've not had anything embargoed today, so I don't expect any more movement before the end of play today. I don't know for a fact. I'm actually out from about 3 o'clock onwards, so likely we'll sign 6 players after that. Always seems to happen. But no, I don't expect anything. Will Sam be in the match day squad tomorrow? Who knows? Potentially, potentially not, with JJ McKiernan and Rob Street moving on and a couple of any knocks or anything. It's potential. Potentially we could see Sam Clucas. it would be nice if they could hold off on his second debut, and he makes his league debut for Lincoln City at home against Peterborough, comes on after 60 minutes and sets up the winner. I would like that, but I would like him to set up a winner anywhere, because we just desperately need a goal. I'm going to wrap this dog walk up. There are no more comments, but I just really wanted to get an impression of Sam Clucas' move to Lincoln City out there. I think it's good. I think it's a good start to the transfer window. He's not going to be a permanent starter. He's going to be somebody that affects areas of the club that we don't see as well as the ones that we do see. But I think it's a nice feel-good story. And after the last few weeks at Lincoln City, the one thing we do need is a feel-good story. But a feel-good story will need a happily ever after, and the happily ever after starts for me tomorrow with some points. It continues a week on Saturday with some points, and then by the time the first week of February rolls around, it follows on with a striker coming in. One last thing as well. Graham Bressington and John Schofield, an evening with, that's next Friday, so that is a week today. Tickets have been slower selling over the course of the last week, so there are still some available. It's £7.50. It's a bargain. It's in Lincoln. It's Attention Twisted Realities on Croft Street. Be hosted by myself and Paul Degare. Promises to be a good night. Graham Bressington, a hero of mine. John Schofield, a man with more stories than Hans Christian Andersen. So these are two people that I think it would be really, really good to listen to. Look, if you are in Lincoln next weekend and you're at a little bit of an impasse, you haven't got a huge amount to do. Next Friday's payday, £7.50. There'll be a bar open. There'll be lots of chatter. It'll be a good night. It'll be intimate. I think there's 30 tickets sold so far, so there's around 50% of the tickets are left for sale. Please do get yourself down there. It would be really good to see you. It'll be a really good night. We're hoping to do more of them. We're hoping to probably get more recent players in as well, but it's all based on whether this one goes well or not for the former players. And I really don't want to be presenting two amazing Lincoln City legends to a half-empty room. So please, if you are watching and you are at a loose end, all ages as well. Kyle Fox messaged me and said, I don't really remember the players. Would it be good for me? I think any stories about Lincoln City, anything that helps build that impression of our football club will be really exciting. And Graham Bressington will have some amazing stories. I know there's one about an incident with Bruce Grobbelaar at a PFA event, but whether or not he tells that, I suppose, depends on how many pints we buy him beforehand. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy your Friday. I shall see some of you potentially at Sixfield tomorrow. Up the Imps.